It's part of the American spirit. You get knocked down, you get up again. But should you go to the trouble of rebuilding a forest if you're at the mercy of a volcano? For Dick Ford and the Forest Service, that was the key question.
When I first came up here and I saw the devastation, I had doubt in my own mind about whether or not we could reforest this, that trees would actually grow up here in my lifetime. We had 650 miles of roads that were buried by this ash, culverts washed out, bridges gone. So we spent 3 months cleaning out the roads, fixing bridges so we could have access back into this area before we could even start harvesting. Nobody in the world had ever faced anything like this, both from salvaging logs to the reforestation. First thing we did was buy a few trees from other people that had surpluses so we could plant our next season, which would have been 1981. You need a 2-year window of minimum to plan for reforestation because that's the minimum age of a tree that you plant in the ground. We had some real challenges here though. You normally have to have the roots into good organic soil. That soil was buried by ash here. So we knew that we were going to have to dig through the ash and then put the roots in the soil underneath. That was going to be a real challenge since some of the ash was as deep as 2 feet. The plan was we'll stay as far away from the mountain as we can get. 18 miles is our farthest ownership from Mount St. Helens that was in this blast. So we started there the first year. The ash was only about 2 inches deep, so that made it simpler from that perspective, and we saved the worst for last because it was the closest to the mountain. The time we finished, which was 1987, we had a good feeling of the safety aspect of what was going to happen and felt more comfortable about moving closer and closer to the mountain. By the time we got done, we had reforested 45,500 acres with a little more than 18 million trees.
After the volcano stopped erupting and the land around here stabilized, a lot of people wanted to come up here to see what had happened. The problem is the road is out there somewhere, buried under a landslide. And so construction began on a new road. Construction began on the $165 million, 48-mile Spirit Lake Memorial Highway in 1986, after much planning and political maneuvering. The highway had to be built high above the valley floor to prevent it from being covered by another mudflow or landslide down the Toutle River Valley. It was also engineered to withstand earthquakes and future eruptions. In just 5 years, the highway was completed to Coldwater Ridge. One thing that makes this area special is that in 1982, President Ronald Reagan declared the blast zone a national volcanic monument. 110,000 acres were set aside for research, recreation, and education, with the focus on the environment being left to grow back naturally without human intervention. After the Spirit Lake Memorial Highway was completed, county, state, and federal agencies went into action to build 5 visitor centers, from Silver Lake to Hofstede Bluffs, the Forest Learning Center, Coldwater Ridge, and the Johnston Ridge Observatory. Visitors from around the world see firsthand the event history of the eruption and the mountain's recovery. One of the major problems caused by the eruption was all of that ash and sediment washing down the Toutle River and into the Columbia, where it disrupted shipping. So the Army Corps of Engineers designed and built the Sediment Retention Dam. It's a massive 1,800 feet long and 184 feet high and made from earth rather than concrete. Its sole purpose is to let the Toutle River flow but hold back the ash and sediment from the mountain. At the 20th anniversary of the eruption, Cowlitz County honored the 57 people who died in the 1980 blast.
We did a big memorial for those that were lost during the eruption of the mountain, and we have a big plaque at Hofstad Bluffs that's sort of dedicated to those who didn't make it. So we had a big ceremony there, and we've had several since to kind of celebrate and remember what we had here.
When we return, the mountain begins to rebuild itself through dome building and additional eruptions.